I'm Rae Bonney, a qualified counsellor, workplace mental health specialist, and not to mention a very dedicated and oftentimes enthusiastically disruptive men's issues advocate. It's not every girl's dream job, but hey, remember, men also matter. Anyway, today, as always, I continue to unwrap one of the greatest gifts going around, and that is people. Layer by layer, we explore the thoughts, experiences, achievements and challenges of ordinary people bound to inspire the best you. So turn up your radio. The time is just 2 minutes past 10, and we just heard from the beautiful and talented Michelle Ciccardo and her globally popular Italian program. Congratulations, Michelle, for continuing to turn up such a wonderful radio show. Now, an introduction to today's show. A little over a week ago, I returned from a fabulous adventure, accomplishing the world-famous Lap of Tasmania. Many of us are familiar with the map of Tasmania, but the Lap of Tasmania was a little bit more arduous than I expected. I headed off for my 54th birthday, boarding the Spirit of Tasmania for the very first time, and for the next 2 weeks had an experience of a lifetime, which we're going to unpack during the show. But before we get into all that, let me tell you a little more about how this is going to happen. Because there's so much storytelling involved, I invited my dearest friend, well, one of my dearest friends, but he's right up there, and he's also a dedicated fan of the show, the marvellous Mark Brown. He's going to co-host to add a bit of a splash of colour and delight to this morning. Welcome, Love Chunks.
Good morning, Rae.
I've been waiting all weekend just to say that on air. Mark and I make up wonderful names for each other. We have a whole repertoire of things, but the latest one is Love Chunks. Not very appetising, is it?
No, I'm not sure where it come from, but we both love it and we both mean it. So,
we do, and we love each other as well, which is even more important. Hello, I looked on Facebook the other day because we celebrated our friendship on Facebook, but we knew each other for a little time before that. But it's been about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, feels like that. Maybe a bit more.
Yeah, since we gazed at each other across the dance floor at Zoe and Matt's wedding up in Rutherglen. Was it Rutherglen?
Yeah, around that region.
Yeah. Beautiful wedding, and you came up to the table and you tapped me on my shoulder and said, "Are you Rae Bonney?"
I did. I was very excited to meet the infamous Rae Bonney and asked the wedding party to introduce me. So and then we struck a conversation, and the rest is history.
It is. And I didn't realise I had such an avid fan for all the right reasons for a change. My interest in men's health and advocacy work there was something that you'd been watching for some time, and then, we struck up that conversation. So welcome to the show again. What does it feel like? Because you listen to the show.
I do.
Every month?
Every month, yeah.
Does it look like you imagined?
Yeah, I think so. I've seen some pictures online and listened to the Italian program, obviously preceding this. And, it's definitely what I expected. So, yeah.
Lots of bells and whistles. You wouldn't like to be on this side of things, though, would you? Where you've got to press all the right buttons.
Yeah, I reckon I might press the wrong button and sort of cut the whole thing. So I'm glad you're in control. Thanks, Rae.
I remember my very first time here at 3WBC on my own, and it was a Sunday morning, probably about this time, and it was a 4-hour show. It was a really, really long show, and I'd had all of my training from the divine Ken Lyons, who hopefully he's listening in today. Ken taught me everything I didn't know about radio, which was not a lot. So I remember just sitting here with sweat pouring down my forehead thinking, I'm about to go live to air and I really don't know what I'm doing, but managed to get through anyway. So it's a bit of a Tasmanian theme this morning, Mark. We've got a few guests coming on that I stumbled upon during my adventures. People that, people impress me all the time. I'm eternally fascinated by people. But the two people that are coming on today particularly inspired me in different ways, mainly because of their storytelling. And who doesn't love a really good story, especially when it involves Australia? But you have a connection through to Tasmania, don't you?
I do. My mother lives in Ulverston, which is about 20 minutes from Devonport, so upper northeast of Tasmania.
Well, that is really weird because we were just talking about that, and I stayed in Ulverston. I actually I was invited by Beyond Blue to go and speak there a number of years ago. In fact, your mum would probably know Lindsay Morgan from Ulverston. He's like the mayor of Ulverston, runs the place. And it's a beautiful part of the world.
It is, and it's really lovely. And lots of penguins coming in too. There's a town close by called Penguin, but certainly near the beach of Ulverston, you see little penguins running in for night time and everything. So quite cute.
Wow. Because, I mean, I've been to Tasmania many, many times, but only for work. So travelling around, it still astounds me around every corner there's something else. It is just... it never fails to stagger you with the beauty and the pristineness, if that's a word. The nature down there is extraordinary.
It is, and a lot of people say, "Oh, would you like to? If I was visiting Australia, should I sort of step over the ditch and go and visit New Zealand, or should I go to Tasmania?" And my recommendation is always to do Tassie. Once you get there, everything's within 2 or 3 hours drive. So
No, it's not.
You reckon?
No, I went from Hobart to Strahan, and that was 5.5.
All right, so maybe it's at it.
It's the winding roads. If you ironed out all the roads in Tasmania, I reckon everything would be 5 minutes.
You're kind of right, and I think half of that is the adventures that you find along the way. The cities, the towns, the people are just fascinated, and it's almost like time has stopped. So I find that a lot of people, they don't look at their watch too often. People pop in and visit, your friends, your neighbours, and no one's in a rush to get anywhere. So you might stay at someone's house for 10 minutes or 2 hours and have coffee and cake, and it's very, very much relaxed. It's not like your London and New York where it's go go go. It's a little bit like time has stopped a bit, and I think that's a lovely thing, especially if you're retired or looking for what we call the tree change.
Yes, or just a break. I concur exactly what you're saying. The 2 weeks we were down there felt like a really long time in a very good way. But yeah, you're right. People are so hospitable. I think the way that Tasmania has invested in their infrastructure or their tourism infrastructure is outstanding. Just walking trails that are so incredibly safe. Signage isn't as great as, in Victoria, we've got a sign for everything. And there probably weren't nearly enough service stations between stops, so almost got caught out a few times. But, again, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through the show. But you were sort of saying off air before that your favourite parts of Tasmania are probably more closer to Hobart.
Yeah, look, I think Hobart's lovely in that it's got something for everybody. So whether you're a foodie or you like to try the craft beers or check out the Salamanca market, hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Salamanca.
Yes, on a
Mark's
Saturday
still
morning.
trying to find his radio voice.
Yes, a little bit croaky. And I think that's a really beautiful market. So I encourage anyone that goes to Tasmania, make sure you're there for Saturday morning for the market. And then, of course, you've got Mona, which is the Modern Art and Contemporary Museum. Yep, got that right. It is just completely out there. It's like nothing else I've ever seen in the world. And I've been to plenty of art galleries and museums, but it is just incredibly fantastic. I think that was a stroke of genius, bringing that to the city. And so much so that the investment in Hobart, I noticed, even quite a few years ago, Qantas started running a route from Adelaide to Hobart because it became so popular. It was called the hippie route, by the way, just because there were so many synergies between the music scene. So that's probably another thing worth mentioning, as well as, bands and artists and, different programs. So it's become really a hip part of Australia, if you like, Rae.
Yeah. And I saw a lot of that as well, what you're just talking about. How many times have you been to Mona?
Probably, I would say 3.
Yeah.
I could probably spend days there. It's
I missed it. I missed it. Well, we were on our way back from Freycinet National Park and Coles Bay where we'd been staying, and I planned to go to Port Arthur because the holiday consisted of myself and Rory, my youngest, Rose, my oldest, her partner Josh, and Bridget, Rose's friend from high school. So they'd all been to Port Arthur a couple of times, so they didn't feel that they needed to go. So Rory and I set off on our own, and by the time we got there, my maps in Tasmania decided just to have a mind of its own. So a lot of the time we were off-road, four-wheel driving almost. So we didn't get to Port Arthur till quite late, and I'm not a fan of driving on windy roads in the dark. So we missed a day in Hobart and stayed, Rory and I stayed in Port Arthur. So by the time we got to Hobart, I did manage to walk into Salamanca Market, and I had breakfast with a friend of mine, Jonathan Bedlow, who used to be the president of the Australian Men's Health Forum. So we caught up on men's health business, and missed all the rest of Hobart. But driving into Hobart, wow, what a spectacle!
It is, especially over that bridge. As you're coming from the airport, as most people might, unless of course you come by ferry through, the Spirit of Tasmania, which arrives in Devonport. So depending on which port you come in, sea or air. But if you come from air, you'll definitely see the lovely bridge that takes you into Hobart. It gives you a really good grasp of the city and how it's laid out and everything. So very walkable, but also a little bit hilly. So if
hilly, windy, that's Tasmania.
Yeah, if you like steps, then it'll be just the place for you.
Yeah. Well, I'd never been on the Spirit of Tasmania before. Things that impress me are the efficiency of getting cars on and off the boat. So efficient. But getting on was quite hilarious, because they ask you a lot about, are you carrying any firearms? And it's sort of like, now that's not something I get asked very regularly, but it's a key theme there. Are you carrying any firearms? And then they get you to open your boot, and they just have a pretty cursory glance in your boot just in case there are firearms that would probably just be laying on top of your luggage. You wouldn't have them hidden or concealed anywhere. So Rory and I were sort of laughing about that a bit, what's the point? But, evidently people do take their firearms to Tasmania. But I loved the boat. That was so much fun. We slept, we had beds, but Rory on the night over, we actually had to crawl to our cabin because the boat was moving so much, going through the heads. We couldn't stand up.
Oh dear! I did hear that that Bass Strait is one of the roughest seas in the world. So
yes,
good on you for being brave enough to navigate that. Yes, I've heard it's quite the adventure. So
it
good
is.
for you. Yeah.
No, but the boat, I highly recommend it. Really good service. Again, it's just quite a novel way of getting to another part of Australia, and for that, grateful for the people that run the boat, because they do a really good job. So, what is it like being you today, Mark Brown?
On a Sunday morning, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels really good.
Yeah, well slept.
Well slept. Always, a little bit nervous and anxious about new things, but great to be here, and I'm really excited to meet some of your other guests today and listen to some of the songs that you've got planned for us.
Yes, well, everyone's we have got a very special guest song request as always, but coming up, we've got Rebecca Mace, or Beck, and I met Beck on the Western Wilderness Railway, and that was in Strahan, in Tasmania, obviously. And Beck was just amazing in the way that she not only was incredibly welcoming and made you feel like every single person on that train feel so special, but her storytelling ability is just remarkable. She just doesn't stop. So I'm going to get her on today to share some of those stories, especially about the history of, in Tasmania. She comes from convicts. She's got great stories to tell about, her dad and her grandfather and her great-grandfather. And then later in the show, we've got James Rowlands, and he skippered a kayaking adventure that we had in Wineglass Bay in Freycinet National Park. And that was a 3-hour adventure that got us very wet. So all this blah, blah that they go, put that, those skirts you put on kayaks around you that evidently keep the water out. No.
No working?
Not at all. Not at all. But it was for many reasons, it was an incredible adventure. And it was. And then it's the stories that also came out of James were really quite remarkable. So he's going to get on today and tell us a little bit about that. But you also, you love travelling, don't you?
I do. I think it's in my veins now. I started when I was 18, and I haven't stopped, and I'm what I might call a middle-aged man now. I did Google it last night, and apparently anything over 45 fits into that bracket. So
Wow.
I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm 46. So
Yeah.
yeah, so as a middle-aged man, I have had the luxury and been very, very fortunate to do a lot of travelling, including Tasmania, which we'll be talking about in today's program. So yeah.
Now, once upon a time, you did send me a list of countries that you visited. How many?
Oh, look, I think it's 66 last count, and on 7 continents. And the 7th continent, maybe we could talk about later.
Yeah.
If I've got time, yeah.
Well, we've got time now if you want
Yeah.
to.
Well, I could tell you about it. Rae was a little bit surprised when she woke up on a Saturday morning and realised that my good self was boarding a plane to Antarctica. And she thought, oh, Mark didn't tell me about that. That's a bit of a surprise. And I actually didn't tell anyone about it. So it was the first flight, I guess, that I'd been on since, during or after COVID, or however we want to describe it right now. And it was on my bucket list. I've been wanting to do this for 25 years. So off we took on a 787 Dreamliner and on a 13-hour journey, flying all over the Antarctic and through valleys and glaciers and amazing ice sheets, and we even dialed into a couple of radio stations, or some bases, I should say, on the continent. And I think having on board so many scientists on the flight, we had a glaciologist, so someone who specialises in glaciers.
Wow.
We had a volcanologist, hopefully I got that right, someone who specialises in volcanoes. And then, of course, we had people who had lived on the continent themselves. So, look, it took us a few hours to get there, and for me, it was quite an emotional day. When our MC or our guide got on the loudspeaker and said, "Welcome to Antarctica." Well, I just burst to tears because I'd just been waiting for 25 years for that very moment. And I made a conscious decision many years ago not to get a boat across and step foot on it and all the rest of it, because I think these days we need to be really responsible with our carbon footprint and that sort of thing. So look, the entire flight was carbon offset, so that was one of my conditions that I went. But look, spending so many hours, just and diving so close to the mountains and everything on the plane, it was just incredible. It was probably up there in the top 3 or 4 experiences of my life. Absolutely incredible. So that was my day of adventure. And then obviously I had a lot of people calling me the next day saying, "Oh my God, what was it like? And what was the best part? And you didn't tell us." And I think the reason was I didn't want to jinx myself. So I wanted to make sure that I was on that plane and in the air before I told anyone. So there's my little Antarctic story for you.
Well, I was almost pinching myself going, number one, this isn't real. Maybe Mark's gone on some simulator or or is just making up some fanciful trip for his Facebook followers. But yeah, it felt unbelievable for me that you were actually there and, getting on that flight. And I understand there was a bit of champagne involved as well.
Just a little bit, yeah. I think, look, the crew were just fantastic. We had beautiful meals and lots of drinks, and especially as we got over the continent, I think everyone had a glass of champagne in their hand, so it was very celebratory. You've never seen so many people standing up in a plane at once, but it was sort of encouraged, only because the plane was half full. So, so look, it was a fantastic day. Met some wonderful people on board, and just, as I said, one of the best experiences. It wasn't cheap, but I'll tell you what, it was worth every dime, Rae.
Well, I checked it out for a once in a lifetime experience. I didn't think it was that out of the question for people who were really interested, because I think they still run them about every 6 months, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and I think the better months, if you like, to go are sort of around March, April, May. Yeah. And the reason for that is it's really clear. So we got to see some of the mountains that ordinarily might be covered in fog or snow or mist or all those other wonderful weather conditions. So, but they do run them quite often. Yeah. Yeah. So.
And did you see any animals as well?
We did see some seals. Columns of seals.
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Yeah. But not really close up, I guess, because it was still quite a few thousand feet in the air. But yeah, it was just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Well done for you. Just to do that.
Yeah. Thanks.
As well. But anyone who's listening in who is interested, just Qantas run it, don't they?
They do.
Yep. Yeah. So just look up Qantas Antarctic experience and find out a bit more about how you can get on a flight and change your life as well. Because, for me, I'm the same as you, Mark. Travel is everything for me. And going anywhere and back to, Tasmania, what we're basing the show on today, my mind is still boggled by the intense beauty and the way that Tasmania has been preserved and how it's showcased. I think is like no other place I've really seen. Very comparable to Europe as well.
I could see some similarities there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, but and the people make it as well, don't they?
They do. I think people make travel everywhere that you go, and for those that are lucky enough to travel, and sometimes you don't have to travel too far to have some wonderful experiences.
No.
But it's the people that I guess enrich the experience, and goodness me, and I use that word again. You're so much richer, not as in money, but richer for the experience in the people you meet, the cultures you experience, the food you taste, the just the whole, experience of going somewhere new and meeting new folks and trying different things. Yeah.
Well, that's right. And again, it's such a small place, but so many things to do if you're willing to do it. And I was quite surprised at feedback, through my circles of people pitying me because I was in Tasmania during winter, going, "Oh, Tasmania's beautiful. It's a shame that you've gone in winter." It's like, no, it was like, why are we so afraid of being cold?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I guess the opposite to that is if you think about people that like the ski bunnies, if you like, or people who like the snow. I mean, winter's one of their favourite times, so they head up to the ski resorts. They head off to New Zealand. They might even go to Canada and go to Whistler and Banff and Jasper because they're interested in the snow and they love the cold. So yes, certainly heat is not for everybody. And for those that don't mind a log fire, or I think there's nothing better than sitting around a fire with a nice glass of red after a long day driving on the road. So yeah.
Well, look, I think there must have been a few days in, but we went to this floating sauna in Derby, or Derby, however you'd like to pronounce it. And Derby, it's a very small town. I mean, a lot of towns in Tasmania, you blink literally, and you've been and gone. It has this magnificent lake, Lake Derby, and on that is a floating sauna. So off we toddled and got into our bathers, and it was, minus something degrees, but get into this sauna that, gets up to about 80 degrees. And before long you're going, get me out of here and get me into that lake. And you get into the lake, diving into the lake is like, get me out of here really fast. Sort of repeat that a few times and feel so invigorated, and really feeling part of nature and feeling incredibly alive, shocks to your system.
So you went from the heat in the sauna to the cold in the lake sort of thing, and then alternated. Yeah. Apparently it's really good for your body.
Very good, very good. But if somebody were to say to you, pop down to Tasmania and jump into Lake Derby in the middle of winter, most people would go, I'm not doing that. But we did. And, again, anyone who's heading down there, highly rate it. You've got to book well in advance because it's really popular. But the whole experience lasts about 45 minutes. That's about how long you get. And it really is worth it. So many other things like that that you can do that you wouldn't ordinarily probably embark upon.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit Scandinavian. That's the type of experience that you might expect in Finland or Sweden or Denmark, that sort of thing. So yeah, good on you, Rae.
Well, actually, the girl that ran it, she was also lovely. She was just there on her own in the middle of nowhere, and she's from the Czech Republic, and she pretty much just lives, in a very remote part of Tasmania now, and we're sort of asking her about her experiences and what makes her feel at home there, and she said she just gesticulated at just about knocked my monitor off the bench there, but just she said, open your eyes, have a look. That's why I'm here. So we're gonna think about heading to a break already, Mark Brown. It's almost been half an hour of the show.
Wow.
Gone
Time
fast.
flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, a bit of chit chat, a bit of this and that. So I actually have selected a song today. I don't normally select songs on my show. but I've selected a few that just for no particular reason. But when Rory and I were travelling around, because there's hardly any reception when you're driving around Tasmania as well, unless you're with Telstra. Anyway, so I'd forget to download music, and so we had this one song list that we'd get into the car and go, oh, bugger, should have downloaded some more songs. So I thought I'd just pull a couple off that to replay, because Rory is sitting in the green room as we speak, and I know he would just get terribly annoyed at hearing these songs again, because he heard them a million times before. But while we're listening to that next song, I'm going to get Rebecca Mace on the phone. And I mentioned Beck before. She was our host on the West Coast Wilderness Railway and told incredible stories of human resilience and triumph over such rugged terrain. Like this rainforest is just absolutely unspeakably beautiful. But how this 35-kilometre railway was built, the 1800s, pretty much with a pick and shovel.
Wow.
And how do people survive that? But Beck's gonna tell us all about it. So here we go. This is a song. It's called "Feel It Still" by Portugal the Man. Do you know that song?
No, but I'm looking forward to hearing it.
You do. You'll know it when you hear it. So don't go away, people. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and we'll be. Time is just 30 minutes past 10, and you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney and the miraculous Mark Brown. How would you describe yourself, Mark?
Lately I've been told marvellous. So
Marvellous.
Maybe just because it matches. Marvellous Mark. Yeah.
But what would you say about yourself? Are you like you're a world traveller, because we just talked about that.
Yeah, look, people think I'm an introvert, and I think sometimes I am, but once I get to know people, they would say, oh, absolutely, Mark's an extrovert. So
Yeah.
I don't mind being boxed in either.
Well, I did spend an evening with you at the Lobster Cave recently, and you were anything but introverted. So anyway, but waiting on the end of the line, all the way from Queenstown, Tasmania, is none other than Beck Mace. Amongst many things, she's an artist, she's a storyteller, and an all-round great entertainer. Welcome to the show, Beck.
Thank you, Rae. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, I know. It's so good to hear your voice.
Thank you. It's just very exciting. I've never been acknowledged as anything much, and this is just beautiful.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to introduce you to Mark Brown. He's my co-host for today. I don't know if you've been listening into the show, but Mark is a very good friend of mine, and he also is a big fan of Tasmania, so he's helping co-host the show today.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
Good, Beck, and we're so pleased to have you on this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, Beck, we met on the West Coast Wilderness Railway, which runs a 35k track between Queenstown and Strahan, built in somewhere around 1897. Is that right?
It was begun in 1894. It was up and running in 1896, and it stopped in 1963, sadly, but then happily it began in 2002, all over again.
Wow, yeah, and you have the privilege to tell people all about it, and share your stories, because your family's Australian life began with 4 convicts, isn't it?
Yes, no surprise there either. Scallywags, every one of them.
Yeah, but I was just so enthralled with your stories, sitting on the train and you just pouring out these things that are almost unbelievable in terms of, courage and the resilience of the human condition.
Isn't it amazing? I'm astounded every single day. There are some cuttings we go through on the railway, and I look at it and I look at them and I think, how did they do this? How did they cut this with a pick and a shovel? I don't think I could even push the wheelbarrow they had to use, much less dig those rocks.
Mm. Well, that's right. Like even sitting on the train, there were some parts where I was sitting right next to the window that it felt like the rock face could have almost touched you. It was so close.
Yes. Well, years ago, the passenger carriages actually didn't have windows. They were open. And luckily they weren't as wide as they are now, so you could probably have hung out the window in those days. But they made the carriages wider for comfort, and just as well they've got glass in them now, because you'd lose your head if you put it out there.
You would indeed. But one of the first stories you told when we got on the train, no, number one, actually, the first impression of Rebecca Mace I had was your kindness and your care and your infectious sense of humour.
Thank you. That's lovely.
Yeah.
I have everything's funny. You know the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, my family motto is what doesn't kill you is really funny. So that's just about everything.
I love that.
And if it does kill you, give us a fortnight and we'll find a joke in it somewhere.
Oh dear, that's awesome. Tell us, one of the first stories was about your grandfather and your grandmother.
Yes.
Can you give us a little more, or the listeners a bit of insight into that story?
Well, my grandmother was born in a place that hasn't existed for well over 100 years. It is remote even now. Once upon a time, the only way in was by boat or by train. Now the only way in is a 3.5-hour hike in along the old railway, but of course there's nothing there. There's a rotting railway carriage there and a chimney.
Yep.
On a brickworks. And that's about all that's there. But in its heyday, there were over 1,000 people living there, and it was a bustling town. But unfortunately, circumstances made that town redundant, so they moved away to somewhere else.
So, but they lived very primitively as well, didn't they?
Well, I don't know primitively, because her father had a large, popular hotel.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't have. But after their marriage, my grandfather and grandmother, they did live primitively. They moved out into the bush. My grandfather was mining and logging, and he then got a job on the Emu Bay Railway as a station master. And they lived in huts. The job didn't come with a house. They had to build their own. So they just used what was to hand, and that was bush poles, any old tin they could find around, canvas, and manfern fronds.
Which just
was primitively.
Which just seems ludicrous, doesn't it, in terms of, what comforts we're used to now. But, when you were describing how many people, well, the original surveyors that came to have a look at building the railway, they left, didn't they? They didn't.
Yes. They were there they were out for 18 months. They got lost. They ran out of food. They didn't know how to find their way back. That can't be good for surveyors.
No.
They didn't take equipment. I don't know what equipment I suppose they needed abseiling stuff and things, because there are some very deep gorges out there.
Yeah.
But yes, they got absolutely sick of it. They didn't want to be there. However, because they didn't do the job, the man in charge, the owner being Bose Kelly, sacked them with no money at all.
Wow. Where were they from?
Well, I don't know, and nobody really knows. They just refer to them as the team of surveyors.
Right.
They wouldn't have been from here. They'd have been from the mainland somewhere. There were no surveyors out here.
Yeah.
And indeed, nobody would come out to the west coast. Nobody from Tasmania, because they didn't want to live out in the hell that is the west coast.
Yeah.
Even today, the weather is, well, I'd call it a nice summer day, but we've had hail for the last hour.
Oh, really?
Yes, great. I think we've had about, 24 mils of rain since yesterday morning. I went out to check earlier.
Oh, because you're in Queenstown, for people that know Tasmania well.
Yes.
And it's a pretty hair-raising drive into Queenstown as well for anyone that's...
The motto here is Queenstown, not for the faint-hearted.
Yes.
That is so true.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, your grandparents, Sylvie and Rae, or Ma and Pa, as you might
Ma and Pa.
call it, they met and married in Tulla, as you said, and he worked, as you said, for the Emu Bay Railway for a while, and then he was a station master.
Yes.
And Farrell's siding was closer to Zeehan than Tulla, wasn't it? And so
Yes. And it was not by much, but when my grandmother went into labour with my father, I just assumed that that's the way the train was going. So she got on the train. Apparently my grandfather wasn't there. He was off doing something. So she just got on the train and took herself into Zeehan. And the hospital there was not much more than a house with a tent out the back. And that's where my father was born.
wow.
Yeah.
Again, remarkable resilience and, how people survived in such conditions. I can't imagine there was a lot of heating or anything either.
No, nothing. And my grandparents lived like that for the rest of their lives and were happy to do so.
Yeah.
And they just, when my father built the house, which was 2 rooms divided with wardrobes, and he had always wanted to build them another house, but they were happy in that one. And the house was only small, but they were so happy in that house because it had a brick fireplace.
Wow.
So, yeah, wow. And even when they had electricity, my grandfather refused to buy an electric fridge. He only wanted his kerosene fridge.
Oh, golly.
So he died when I was 14.
Yep.
So I was still working with a kerosene fridge when I was 14.
Now, they ended up moving to Melbourne, didn't they? Or to Victoria?
Yes, that's all my father's fault.
Yeah.
He refused to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And the truant officer chased them. And finally, my grandfather said he couldn't be bothered avoiding the truant officer anymore and asked my father if he was ever going to go to school, and Dad said no. So they moved to Victoria, and that was in 1938. And when they got to Victoria, they went to Clifton Hill and they opened a pie shop.
Oh.
Because my grandmother was the most amazing cook.
Yeah.
So they opened a pie shop in Clifton Hill. And once again, Dad wouldn't go to school, and the truant officer was chasing them. So they moved up to Langata. Grania, which is unheard of now, but Grania up on the Hume Weir.
Right.
And took up mining there. And Dad he started on the mine at 13 building roads and became mine manager at 15.
Wow.
So he was pretty cluey.
That's
my father.
For somebody that didn't go to school. And
Yes.
Education's not what it's all cracked up to be.
Well, you didn't really need it then.
Yeah. So, a mine manager at 15.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's really impressive. And I know the way you speak about your dad, with such high regard.
Yes.
But that's one of the reasons you're in Tasmania now, isn't it?
Yes. Well, after my mother died, I moved in with my father and looked after him for the last 8 years of his life, which was an honour and a delight. It was a privilege and a hoot every single day because he was very funny.
Yeah.
And it was just his dream to move back to Tasmania, so I made it my mission. But unfortunately, he didn't make it. But he was 93 when he died, and I think he knew he wasn't coming back. So we had brought him for a holiday nonetheless, and he loved that. He got to see the house I'd bought that he was going to live in, and he had become a builder later in life. He needed to do that to support his family. Later in life, I suppose he was 20. Although, no, older than that, because Mum and Dad married when Dad was 26. So probably 27 he became a builder.
Yeah.
And they had done up old houses all their lives together. They were married for 60 years. And the house Dad and I were living in was their 26th.
Wow.
So we moved around a bit.
Mm.
And, yeah, came over to see the house and he gave me all sorts of advice and we need to do this and we'll do that. And he used to say, if I wasn't so old, love, I'd do that wall for you. But, no, he didn't make it, unfortunately.
Oh.
But he's now resting out towards where his mother was born. We took his ashes out to sprinkle just a few weeks ago.
Oh,
we had
okay.
a lovely day,
Yeah.
so we decided we'd go out there. And that, too, was a bit of a farce. That was hilarious.
Mm.
But, yeah, we got out there and we had forgotten to take a screwdriver or a knife to get the lid off the urn. So we had to jump on the plastic container, which knocked the lid off, and ashes went just in a long straight line. And my daughter and I just fell over laughing, realising how Dad would have laughed at that. And we've decided now that that's his finish line.
That's hilarious. Oh dear! As you said before, what doesn't kill you is what
It's really funny.
It's really funny. Yeah. Because you have quite a distinct sense of being unconventional, don't you, Beck?
Yes.
You know,
I
and
hope so, yes.
yeah, and you were showing us on the train. I think we asked the most questions, didn't we, my family?
Yes.
We are a family of question askers.
It's beautiful. It was lovely. I love answering questions.
But you tell us about assemblage and what that means to you.
Assemblage is where I take elements and rebuild them into something else.
Mm.
And the elements I love are bone. I will take what's left of an animal and turn it into something else. Mm. I'm looking at some of my stuff as I sit here. I have made a bat of sorts using a sacrum of a cow. It's hard to describe. Mm. 2 sheep ribs, Barbie legs and hands. I don't like Barbies. A possum skull that I've painted red, and I've made wings using umbrella ribs and old X-rays. Wow. And I think it's beautiful. It's one piece that I have kept. Mm. But I make things, I use anything I find, and it can be intricate. I love making lamps. I think lamps is my favourite thing. I just take what I can find of animals. I make jewellery from crow's feet.
Wow.
And just anything. Bottle tops. Barbie faces fit so well into bottle tops.
And you don't. Why don't you like Barbies?
I just think they're grotesque. They're awful. They make good jewellery, though.
Yeah. I remember once, I'm not a massive fan of Barbies, but somehow I inherited a Barbie house. This is when Rose, who you met on the train, and her other brother, George, they were really little. And so I had a few spare Barbies and stuff floating around as well. So I concocted, I thought I'd make a scene for the kids. So I got the Barbie house. I shoved the Barbies like hanging out of the windows and everything like that. And I set it all alight and then called the kids out to say, house fire. So all the Barbies are the Barbies are on fire, and the kids are just looking at me going, "What have you done?" Like,
that sounds like something I'd do.
Yeah, I'll never forget the smell of like burning plastic.
Oh, like napalm in the morning.
Yeah, because I had to use a bit of accelerant to sort of get it going. I think I used metho or something.
Oh, like every good arsonist.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I can really relate to that because once I made a wind chime of Barbies hanging from nooses. Oh. So I can relate to your house fire.
Yeah, we have the Mattel on the phone soon going, how dare you?
Yeah.
He's so...
Well, yes, but it just means they're going to have to sell more Barbies.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's good. Although I have to say my wind chime didn't chime at all.
No, it'd be more gonking, wouldn't it? Sort of.
Yes, it was dreadful.
Now, Mark's sitting here just in stitches. Do you have any questions that are popping up for you for Beck?
Just one, not so much about the Barbies. I think that set me off into a bit of a fit, to be honest, but a good one. I really enjoyed the story, Beck, but I was a little bit interested in the mining. What sort of mining, like what was he looking for when he was mining, I guess is my question.
My grandfather was after gold.
Lovely, yes.
Yes. But the West Coast is one of the richest areas in minerals of anywhere in the world. You name it, you can get it here. Everything from osmiridium, which is found only here and in a small area in Russia, to copper and gold. There's silver, galena, gold, nickel, tin, iron. There's probably a million other things I don't even know about. Mm. But this is such a rich area. It's
because
amazing.
Isn't it one of the world's only cool climate rainforests? Is that what?
Yes. Of the 100% of rainforest, 95% of it is here.
Yes.
And the other 5% is in New Zealand and South America. Mm. It is a large area, but the beautiful thing about that is Robert Stisht, who was the mine manager of the Mount Lyell mine, began to have it protected in 1896. So it's also one of the world's earliest protected areas.
Right, yeah, because it's World Heritage listed as well, isn't it?
It is now, yes, it is now, but even then, in 1896, it was protected.
Yeah.
He saw the beauty of it and didn't want it touched. Mm. So they set to and made sure nobody came out here.
Wow. I think that's one thing that really stands out for me in being in Tasmania is how well preserved it is. And
yes.
We went to after we saw you a few days later, we went to the caves at Mole Creek.
Oh, wow. Every time I've been there, they've been closed.
Oh, right. Yeah, but, you just go... And the guy that took that, Aaron, his name was, like you, another beautiful Taswegian who so incredibly passionate about what he does, but the stories that he was sharing, these ancient mollusks, that are in the walls of the cave weren't even originating here in Australia. They were originated in Europe and during all the ice ages, like something like 480 billion years ago. Now sit on a wall in bloody Tasmania.
That takes my breath away.
Yeah.
There is a beach in Hobart called Fossil Cove. Mm. And I went to visit it one day with my daughter when she was studying geology, and it was all I could do to get back up the hill. But you have to walk down a steep hill because I had filled my pockets with fossils. Oh. And I thought, I'm not going to make it up the hill. I'm going to die here, halfway up this mountain. Pockets full of fossils. That's amazing. I must go. But as I said, every time I've been over, it's been closed. Yeah. But perhaps now it will be.
It's well worth it. There's two caves. One's quite a big cave and there's a smaller one as well. We did the big cave, but yeah, very, very impressive with that. And in fact, when you were just talking about climbing up hills, I don't know if it was before we saw you or after we saw you, but we found the sand dunes just out of Strahan.
Yes.
So I said
that's a climb.
Yeah, I went to the kids, let's go sand, duning, pretty sure that'll be fun. So we found a shop in Strahan that hired out toboggans, and again, lovely ladies in the shop, so very helpful. They said, look, it's been raining a bit. I don't reckon you're going to get a really good go, so you can have them for free. We won't charge you. And I said, well, I'll make you a deal. If we do have fun on them, we will come back when we return them. We will pay for them. So that was the deal. So off we went. My God, climbing up those sand dunes was just hideous. Anyway,
Yes.
so we got to the top, and it looked quite steep. So I sent the kids down first, as you do, just to do the test run.
Yeah,
So
they're only children.
Yeah, that's right. Rose went first, and she was fine. Then Josh went, and then Bridget went, and then it was my turn. And little did I know they'd created this beautiful slipstream for me. So I got in. My last words to Rose were, "Do you think I'll be all right?" And then 5 seconds later, I was at the bottom of the hill that I had cartwheeled over and over. My face was firmly planted into the sand. I thought I'd broken everything.
No.
It was...
See what doesn't kill you.
Well, they recorded it on their phone because, we love recording it. And all I can hear is just laughter. They're just laughing their heads off. I could have died. But again, what didn't kill me, Beck?
Yes, absolutely. And especially as you have a record of it now.
That's right.
It's always good to have a record of where you survived.
Yeah, that's right. But, again, a very underrated, I don't think a lot of people know about the sand dunes just out of Strahan. But if you do go there, it's great for exercise, great for the calf muscles. But do beware, those toboggans can move.
Right. I haven't used the toboggans. I was pushed down it by my son-in-law.
Oh, really?
Luckily, I dug my feet in before I got to the bottom. But, yes, I was screaming as well. At him. Not in laughter.
Yeah.
I can't repeat what I was calling him. But
not on air at 3WBC.
It was choice. No.
Yes.
It was choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also actually saw, didn't realise until we eventually went to see the Tasmanian Devils at Cradle Mountain. Yeah. And learned, again, another person who learned so much from the girl who took that little adventure for us. But, oh gosh, just gone out of my head what I was going to say about them. Anyway, it's gone. But it was pretty amazing.
While you were at Mole Creek, did you go to Trawana?
No. What's that?
Oh, Trawana is a wildlife park just up the road from Mole Creek, from the caves.
Yeah.
Where you can feed the kangaroos and they don't have kangaroos here, the wallabies and potoroos and everything. And if you don't feed them, they'll just go through your handbag and take what they want. And they're just devils and quolls and it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
It really
they're
is.
Quite amazing, the little devils. And in fact, we saw a few wombats as well. And recently on another radio show, which isn't mine, it's a commercial radio station, a guide phoned in and was telling a story about when this wombat chased him around the car. And the host of the radio show was really, really putting this guy down, going, as if like wombats are so slow. But I know that a wombat can go from 0 to 40 k's an hour straight away and break your legs.
Yes. And not even know it's done it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. It's another fun fact for anyone listening in.
Another fun fact is don't try and pat a quoll in its cage.
No. They're ferocious.
My daughter did that. Yes, my daughter did that, and it bit her finger, and she pulled her finger out really quickly out of the cage, and she said to me, she's 26 at the time, she said to me, "Don't tell anybody I did that."
Okay, you've got your bloody finger, because I think those quolls have amongst the strongest jaws as well. And
the devils do as well, because they eat bones and everything. Yeah. What is beautiful about the devils is the way they talk.
Well, yes.
I have a friend who has a fishing shack out on the other side of the heads of Macquarie Harbour, and they live under the shack.
Yeah.
And they talk all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just beautiful.
And they are. And I managed to get a recording of two Tasmanian devils really having a great chat with each other, and it sounds like they're fighting, but they're not. And I posted it on social media, and somebody said, "That is so disgusting, take it down." I went, "No, you are."
Why? Did they give a reason for thinking that?
It's that just, I guess unconscious bias that people have, that they see something and they judge it just on this face value, but not realising that that's two Tasmanian devils having a whale of a time.
Yeah.
It's like your art. The beauty in your art. And I've saw a lot of, examples of what you create out of bone, and, beautiful to me, but maybe not beautiful to somebody else,
True.
Because they judge on, oh, that's a dead animal, rather than, wow, that's a really beautiful piece of art that's, taken,
I'm always amazed at the fear and horror that people have at death. Death is so natural, and it's
right.
quite beautiful.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a horrible thing.
No.
It just doesn't have to be. And the thing is, these bones have been, there have been little piles of bones left for me everywhere in my life that I've collected. And I have in boxes out the back in my shed that will be turned into something eventually.
Yeah.
But if you look at these bones, if you cut one open, it's like the most beautiful filigree.
Yeah.
The bones themselves are magnificent.
Yeah. And that you're, maintaining the integrity of not only the animal, but, what they've left behind.
Yes. And why waste everything? The world's heavily into recycling. Well, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Do you ever, finish a T-bone steak, Beck, and go, oh, I might make something out of that?
No, not a T-bone, but I have to admit, every time I make bee and ham soup, I think, oh, that's a nice hot bone. I could engrave that.
Now, Beck, this is, I allocated 20 minutes and we've gone into half an hour because we could actually have you on all day by the sounds of it. But I am going to have to go to your very special guest song request that you've requested. And then after the break, Mark and I are going to have a little chat, and then we're going to speak to another remarkable Taswegian, James Rowlands. And I met James at Wineglass Bay.
Now that's a beautiful place.
Yes, he took us on a kayaking tour.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so I drew
It's beautiful to know that, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to know that you availed yourself of everything that was here.
Yeah.
That you really involved yourself. It's just beautiful. A lot of people come and don't do that.
No, well, I can thank Rose and Josh for that because they were very instrumental in putting together the itinerary, which didn't leave us...
Aren't they great?
I know. Didn't leave us much time for any R&R, but I'm so glad that we did it that way because, as you said, we've just packed in so much.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so now tell us about the song that you have requested.
Well, I love Tom Waits.
Yep.
And there is a line in the first, whatever, I don't know anything about music. One of the first lines is, God used me as a hammer, boys, to beat his weary drum today.
Oh.
And that line just moves me.
Oh.
Sometimes people do feel that, and I know I have myself, that they are just at the end of their tether and it's all too much. And I've always looked on that line as it's nothing that I've done. It's just that's what's happening. The world is using me to beat a weary drum, and that will stop. And to me, that's like saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And besides that, he's got the best voice I've ever heard.
Well, I've never heard the song before, and it's a really really good tune. So thanks for introducing that to me as well.
Fine.
All right.
Tom Waits forever, man.
Well, thank you again for being such a delightful guest and entertaining us.
You.
Not only in Tasmania,
Rae.
but this morning, Beck. And let's keep in touch.
Well, that'll be lovely. And it's been fantastic. Thank you very much. And lovely meeting you, Mark.
Thanks, Beck. And you're listening to 94.1 3WBC.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Hoist That Rag by Tom Waits. And Mark and I went, That's an interesting song, isn't it? Felt a bit heavy for a Sunday morning, but that was compliments of Beck, our guest who just left us, who lives in Queenstown in Tasmania, talking all things Tassie today. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you, Rae.
We've got a little bit of chit-chat time before I get another Taswegian on the phone. That's James Rowlands. He's actually in Hobart and frequents Freycinet National Park as well. So you had a question for me.
I did indeed. And look, Rae, you asked me this question when we first started, and I wonder if I could ask the same in kind. So what does it feel like to be you today, Rae?
Thank you for asking, Mark. Not that we have this scripted or anything. And when you asked me, I thought, gosh, what does it feel like being me today? And I would say I feel very energised being here with you. It's so much fun to share something that I really, really love doing with somebody I really love as well, and showing you a little bit of a part of me. Even though you do tune into the show, you've never actually sat on the other side of the panel and been part of the show. So that feels very good for me. I like knowing that we're going to do a little bit of socialising after this. We're going to go out for lunch. So I'm excited about that. And excited about, the new week as well that we're heading into. My week's always extraordinarily varied. And I'm very grateful that, I get to do what I do.
And look, Rae, I think a lot of people understand that you're a men's health advocate. I wonder if you might tell the listeners, what's the most rewarding part of your work, or even what a typical week might look like. But probably, what's the best part that really gets you out of bed and gets you going in the morning? What's the thing that really makes you tick? I'm really interested for people to hear. Yeah.
Well, thank you for asking. It's not often I get asked questions on this show. My work, I guess, the most rewarding part is the privilege of actually being part of somebody's life. Anyone that knows me well knows that I don't give advice and I don't help. They're two things I don't do. But I do love helping people make sense of what's going on with their lives, and that's very rewarding in itself when you're working with somebody and they arrive at their own self-enabling behaviours, which is always my objective, is to enable people to manage better rather than try and fix anything. Because again, I'm not qualified to fix things for people, I'm not qualified to give advice, and I'm not qualified to help. But the misunderstanding about people who work in this kind of sector is that's what we do, and that we feel incredibly inspired by helping others. And I think that's kind of a very arrogant approach to working with people, and agree or disagree, but I find it most comfortable. But when you're sitting with somebody and they trust you with their information or their data, I find that that gets me up every day. And especially men, because it's certainly not to the detriment or exclusion of women, but men have very little resource, very little understanding, and very, very little opportunity to connect with support, unfortunately. So that's one of my objectives in life is to create more of that for men and boys.
Excellent. Thanks, Rae. And I would hazard a guess that you change people's lives on not only a daily basis but a weekly basis. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there that are very thankful for your wisdom, your advice, your counsel, and really that support mechanism, knowing that you're advocating for people and you can show them in the right direction. That there's a lot of help out there, and it's just really getting people the right resources, as we know.
But I think we all play that role as well. I mean, we've just heard from Beck in Queenstown. I've no doubt that Beck changes people's lives every day just by opening her mouth on that train and entertaining people, educating people, inspiring people. And I think a lot of us don't realise the impact that we can have on others just by merely being kind.
Exactly. And I think someone like Beck who oozes enthusiasm, I would call that almost contagious in some respects, because you can't help but want to know more and listen to her and just be fascinated by her story. So I think you're absolutely right. We can have a lot more Becks in the world, if you like.
Well, that's right, because honestly, people, the opposite, when people are unkind to each other, that also has a massive impact on somebody's day, somebody's life, that is irretractable and irreversible sometimes. I was working with somebody the other day in a workplace situation, and this person was talking about a person that that no one likes in the workplace, and they've got a nickname for this person, which is terribly unkind. And I said to that person, I said, how do you know that person doesn't go home every night just feeling so absolutely just gutted about, this nickname that you all call that person behind their back? And he sort of just stopped in his tracks and he really thought about it. And yeah, you could just see that he'd never really thought of that before. Just was very, very involved in the idea and the narrative that this person does a terrible job and deserves to get that kind of nickname, rather than, well, this could really be, something that affects how that person, or their purpose of even staying alive.
Yeah, I think, and you're quite right, being kind to someone doesn't cost any money.
No.
Just like saying thank you.
Yes.
A genuine thank you to people is often something that might make someone's day. If I said, thanks, Rae, I've just had the most incredible day today. Thank you for having me on. That's enough,
Yeah,
So,
that's right. That's right. And we're coming up to 11:15, so I've got to get on with this show, Mark. Got a little happy song to play, and then I'm going to get James from James Rowlands from. I don't know if he's going to be in Hobart today or where he's going to be in Tasmania, but wherever he is in the world, I'm getting him on the phone. So don't go away, people. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The time is just 19 minutes past 11, and you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney and the marvellous Mark Brown. And waiting on the line, as promised, we have James Rowlands. Now, Jamesy boys, I met him in Freycinet National Park, and he's from Freycinet Adventures. Welcome to the show, James. Stop it. Here you go. You've got something you want to say.
Oh, hello. Yeah, well, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good, thanks. I wrote you a poem. You want to hear it?
I do, please.
Okay. My poem, it's about you. It says, Hi, Rae Bonney. I wrote you a sonnet. That doesn't quite rhyme with Bonnie, but I'm not really on it. I'm strong in song form and radio too, and this could be my greatest interview. Over to you.
Oh, wow, that is awesome. When did you come up with that little sonnet?
Well, I was sitting down waiting for you to call.
Yeah.
And I had sort of 2 minutes. I was a bit antsy.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd solve all of my problems. Do you think I should call it a poem or a rap? Because I think rap makes me cooler.
Yeah, definitely. I'd call it a rap. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So can you frame that for me and send it across the water?
Oh, definitely. But you'll find out how many edits I made. Embarrassingly many.
In 2 minutes.
5-line poem.
Now, I'd like to formally introduce you to the marvellous Mark Brown, who's sitting across the panel from me. Mark's helping me. He's co-hosting with me today.
Excellent.
So say hi to Jamesy boy, Marky boy.
Hi, Jamesy boy, Marky boy.
G'day, Marky boy.
I've heard only good things about you. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
I don't know who you are.
Now, for those of you who've just tuned in, we are having a bit of a Tasmanian special this morning, given that I've just arrived back from an amazing adventure over there and met a couple of people who really, really impressed and inspired me, and one of them being James. James conducted a tour for myself and the kids, kayaking in Wineglass Bay. And that wasn't as dry as I expected, James, nor was it as warm as I expected. However, it was incredibly entertaining, and I drew the long straw because there was 5 of us and three kayaks, so somebody had to go with you.
Oh, miserable old me, yeah.
Yeah, so I put my hand up for that. I'm so glad.
I wasn't too pleased to have you either, but, it worked out. So.
But I never said that. Because I said I drew the long straw. The long straw is the good one, isn't it?
Oh, that's the good one. Oh, I got
Yeah.
that completely flipped.
Yeah. So take that back, please.
We had a lot of good conversations, some
We
of which
did.
I can't tell you on radio.
Can you
You're a
repeat all
wonderful
of
woman.
it? Well, we went for allegedly 7.4 kilometres. That's what my Garmin watch said. Around the stunning Wineglass Bay. But yeah, you and I just started talking straight away because one of the first things you asked me is, what do I do? And of course, I love talking about what I do, all about me.
Oh, me too.
And then we started sharing stories. So I didn't really have any questions for you, really, but we got into talking about men's health.
Yeah.
And another man we did meet along the way was Sam, the 2-year-old seal who was recovering from a cookie cutter shark bite.
Yeah. Can I tell you about Sam, just like a quick intro?
Well, you can do a long intro if you like.
Well, Sam is this beautiful Australian fur seal. Fur means cute. And he was sitting on one of these breakwaters. And, you know, because I'm a kayak guide, if I ever have people going really, really slow and I need to speed them up, I mention the word baby seal. And they immediately swim and paddle as fast as they can absolutely go. And Sam is this 2-year-old young male who's got bitten by a weird-looking shark, which doesn't eat the whole animal. It takes a bite out of him. And he was sitting up on the rocks, resting up, and was the most adorable thing, probably waiting until he gets healed up and then becoming a full male in about 5 years.
Yeah, and we had the privilege of meeting him. And
Yeah.
And you made me take all these photographs to try and get a photograph of his wound. And he couldn't.
Yeah.
He wouldn't quite turn around for us. But
Yeah.
I think I almost lost my iPhone 8
Yeah.
or 9, 12, whatever it is I've got. I don't even have an
You
iPhone.
got quantity, not quality, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
Well,
that.
He's gone now.
Oh.
He's actually healed up. He's taken off. And I reckon we gave him some fish and he got really perky and fat.
Yeah.
And I reckon we've totally healed him up, Ray.
Oh, wow, that's really, really good news. That's great
Yeah.
news. And all due to your TLC.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're tough creatures too.
Because, you know, you had to be on this kayaking adventure with James to actually understand his passion for, you know, the wilderness, nature, and, you know, and Sam as well. What's your qualification again, James?
Well, I've done zoology at university
That's
here
right.
in Tasmania, which is the best place to do it.
Yeah.
Plus a bit of other things, practice.
I was just saying to Mark, because Mark said, what's James's qualification? Because Mark only likes to speak with people who are highly qualified.
I'm very
That's
intelligent
not
too.
quite true.
Did you hear my poem?
I did hear it, James. It was fantastic. And on the
Thanks,
fly as
mate.
well.
Yeah. I came up with about 2 minutes.
So where
You
are
know,
you?
my real qualification, Mark, just before we go, is I grew up in the bush. It's much easier to just live it, I think.
Oh gosh, I mean, you're so lucky. Are you in Hobart today?
Yeah, I am now. Yeah.
Oh, right. And when was the last kayaking tour you took?
About 3 days ago.
Yep.
Wasn't one of my best. It was very rainy.
Oh, and the people wouldn't have been as fun as us either.
No, they didn't like any of my poems. I mean raps.
Raps. Well, our trip started off. You know, Rose. Rose can be quite obstinate at times, and she likes to just march to the beat of her own drum. So Rose and Bridget ended up sort of downstream somewhere where they shouldn't be. On the shoreline because they couldn't quite get out. So James had to abandon me and go and get Rose and Bridget launched again. Off we went, and we were out for 3 hours? Is that right?
Yeah, 3 hours, bang on.
And James took us to this like honeymoon place where people go and get married, this little beach, and
yeah, we take everyone there. I should point that out.
Oh right, okay. This is for entertainment purposes. I just leave things out. But out of nowhere, James produces like hot chocolate, biscuits, tea, the whole shebang out of the boat, and the kids said the hot chocolate was a bit watery, James. So you might want to increase the strength of that down the track.
Oh, they didn't mention that on my tour. They said this can't be your first rodeo. You're doing brilliantly. You raised a bunch of liars, Ray.
But it was so much fun and so incredibly beautiful as well. But James and I got talking, and we talking a lot about men's health, and And you sort of, we're very generous in sort of talking about your experiences of being a boy and a man as well. And, even spoke about a time when, when you were 19, that things weren't so great for you.
Yeah. Well, at 25, I'm proud to say I finally made it to a man.
Yep.
I've done really well. At 19 was all right. That was after leaving school, so it was a big change. I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Is that what we're on about?
Yeah, that's right. And then you mentioned to me that you found you used music to help you through.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Music was the only thing there, in practical terms. I was very depressed and upset and lonely, and music was the only thing that was a good force in my life. And I played a lot of music. I learned to play really, really well and wrote heaps of songs, poems as well. That's probably where that comes from. And I annoyed all of my neighbours by staying alive and playing really loud music, good music.
Yeah, but how, it's a simple thing really, isn't it? That, music and being creative, but, it's very common for boys to get lost at that kind of age and not have any outlets or resources to be able to sort of help make sense of things.
Yeah, and you don't even have to be good at it. You just got to play, know. Like, you just do anything you want. Even like musicians online, you just watch them and listen to them.
Yeah.
They're really good for you.
Yeah, exactly. But that was, some of the other things we talked about as well, sort of lack of resources for men and boys. And, you share one of, we share idols, namely Jordan Peterson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a great man.
Yeah, Jordan.
He's on YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. And, he's such a great example of somebody who really does help make sense of what it's like being boys and men.
That's right, yeah.
And better ways of managing. So, so you're off overseas as well, aren't you, soon? Is it?
Oh, I'm going to Malaysia, yeah.
Yeah. With your
that'll be awesome.
With your love?
Yeah, my partner and 4 other mates as well, all men.
Yep.
Yeah. A couple of them are together as well.
Yeah, because we've been talking a lot about travel on the show this morning, and
cool.
Just Mark was mentioning his most recent trip, and you'll love this, Jamesy boy, that Mark just hopped on a flight. I woke up one Saturday morning, and here's Mark Brown checking in at Tullamarine Airport to go flying to the Antarctic.
Oh, my God.
I'm going, did I get drunk or something and have a conversation with him there? He told me that this was happening. But tell Mark, tell James, Mark, about just the little highlights about getting on that plane.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. And look, James, it really was one of the most special days of my life. It took a few hours for us to get to Antarctica. We did fly over Tasmania, so that was part of the joy as well. And we managed to link in with some of the bases that were there on Antarctica. We were on the Dreamliner, so big windows to look out on, and everyone was up in the aisles, and we were switching seats, so everyone got a good. I think I took probably maybe 300 or 400 photos and videos and filled up my iPhone memory. But look, it really was something special and something that I'd sort of been wanting to do for about 25 years. And just the moment,
that's the entire James's life span so far. I've run out of words. Sorry, James.
Yeah, I might have accidentally given my age away then, being sort of years. 46. Yeah. So look, James, it was just absolutely wonderful, and as a zoologist or somebody who studied that, you would absolutely appreciate all the different wildlife that is down there. Yeah, and how fragile.
Yeah,
Please.
I've got a mate who went. I'm going to tell you what. First of all, the seals down there are massive. Have you seen any of them?
Not from the plane, but yeah. Well, I've done a lot of research on Antarctica, and yes, incredible. Yeah, and obviously, a lot of people think polar bears are down there, but they're not. So,
the north.
Yeah.
A lot of uneducated people out there, Mark. Not like us.
Get in a kayak with James, Yeah,
get in a kayak with me. We'll see polar bears and everything.
Yeah.
So James,
worry about the hot chocolate; it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a mate who's been to Antarctica, and the penguin colonies down there. You can actually hang out with them. She's got selfies of herself in a penguin onesie, sitting out with all the lovely penguins in Antarctica.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
My gosh, in a penguin
Yeah.
onesie. That's
And you
were
can
they
jump in.
fooled? Were they fooled?
They say it's not like one of my tours. They say, all right, now you're down in Antarctica. There's the nearest iceberg. Jump in and see if you can touch the iceberg and swim back to the boat.
Oh gosh, it sounds like our experience of the floating sauna in Derby in
Oh,
Tasmania.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like jumping into an ice bucket.
Oh, those things are awful.
Oh, no, did you say awful or awesome?
Awful. I wouldn't do that.
Oh, it was so good.
Was it
So
good?
yeah,
Oh, right.
it was probably apart from the kayaking was the highlight of my trip,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and probably on par, as cold as
Yeah.
each other. You know, by the time
Wow.
when we got back, I was saying to Mark before, these skirt things that you put on the bloody kayak,
Yeah.
they're about as useful as tits on a bull. You know. By the time we got home, it took me about 3 hours to get warm.
Oh, my God.
But
I'll tell you what, you think it's hard from your end. Try putting on a skirt on a full-grown man at 9 in the morning every day, Ray.
oh,
Not
gosh.
easy for me either.
No, we're digressing anyway. Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you were talking about your friend who went down to the Antarctica in the onesie. But tell us also, James, not only have you got a great interest in the environment and our beautiful animals and things like that,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
music is also a big part of your life. And you were telling me about a time where you just got picked up to do a year spot in a play in Tasmania.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, it's a great story. You know, I told you I grew up in the bush.
Yeah.
And I love animals, and I just kind of got into it because I love them. And then I got my first ever job. It was way the hell out in the middle of nowhere on the west coast of Tassie. They're all weirdos out there. And I had 45 minutes of my job where I was supposed to talk to people about trees, about how, my job was to point out the 5 major species and say, this is Huon pine. We used to cut it up, now we don't. And because I was so impassioned by everything, I was utterly in love with the place. I would stand up in the middle of these seats in the middle of the forest and get crowds of like 200 people and just absolutely go for it and tell everyone about all the trees and my love of the forest and the passion and the beauty of the animals and everything. And they were absolutely in love with me, and they would say all these beautiful things. They're like a mini Steve Irwin. I'm like a conductor, and the forest is my orchestra. I was like, all right, calm down, people. But from there, like one of the local tour guides and actors, they came on one of my little tours, and because I was so good at it, they just said, right, if you want to be in the play, come and do it. And I did, because their work hours were better. So I ended up working in this play about being a pirate for about a year, and it was excellent fun. Really, really cool. I can't remember any of the jokes, but
no. How were you going at learning your lines?
Oh, that was all right. I was working with my boss. She was like the heart of the whole place. So the lines were almost written by her. So it was quite easy to follow their essence as well. And I admit that I got them always. There was one line I would always get wrong, and she'd always glare at me. But we were in the middle of a performance, so she couldn't do anything about it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
You also remember when we were paddling around, and Rose mentioned when she'd booked the kayaking adventure, she spoke to the office lady. What's her name? Annette. Yeah. And then you later told a story about when you guys got some did some guests get stranded or something, and Annette had to come and pick you all up in a car.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Yeah. So tell us what happened there, because I thought that was really funny.
Oh, I don't remember the funny bit. I just remember everyone screaming and wailing. Yeah, that was all right. We pulled into the beach. It was huge swell. I don't know. We gave them a lot of cookies, and that sorted them out. Yeah. Annette came and rescued us, from the office. She was very happy to do it, I think. She got to see me on my real tour. Yeah.
On a real tour, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any other tours that haven't worked out like you expected?
Well, the last one was a bit rainy, but they were still happy. Like, I met him at this great shop called the Horny Cray. I don't know if you're a Tasmanian, Mark, but it's a beautiful shop for fish and chips. And, they were all beaming and gleaming, and they were tucking in their buckets of gravy, and we chatted for like ages, and it turns out even they were really, really happy. Yeah. So even though it rained a fair bit, we were all pretty good.
Yeah.
No actual scary ones, and no one's actually capsized yet, Ray. No
I know
one's
you
flipped
said
over.
that, and you're disappointed with that, aren't you?
I'm so disappointed. I can't wait for an injury or someone to fall in. Terrible.
Well,
Nothing ever goes wrong.
I mentioned earlier on the show that after we'd seen you, we went across to Strahan, and I discovered that there were some pretty impressive sand dunes there that you could go tobogganing on. I said to the kids, "Hey, let's do that." And long story short, kids went down there pretty well. And then when it got to my turn, they'd created a magical slipstream for me by this stage. So I went down in 0.2 of a second and lost control at the bottom and ended up, injuring myself a little bit.
You did?
Oh yeah, it wasn't great.
Oh wow.
But I've still got sand coming out of places I didn't know you could get sand into.
Oh dear, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, still another
Okay,
another one of those untapped, great things you can do when you're in Tassie.
Yeah, come to Tasmania. It's beautiful.
Yeah, because we actually saw
the freezing river.
Well, we're being on the west coast, where you were mentioning before, and the hue and pine, and we went on that wilderness train.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, the tour guide that we had, Rebecca, she was on the show earlier today.
Yeah. Oh wow!
Having a chat with her because she was great too. We really, really liked her. I said I'd come on the show, so it's been a bit of a Tassie special this morning. We also went and saw the Devils.
Where?
At Cradle Mountain.
Oh, beautiful! Yeah.
It's Devils at Cradle. It's the name of the place.
Oh yeah.
And learned so much about Tasmanian Devils and quackers and all those guys, and just how we have so many unique things here in Australia.
Yeah.
That
if you think radio is difficult, you should try it. Like talking.
Did I say that radio was difficult? Did I?
Well, no.
Pretty easy for me. Yeah,
but
that's right.
We'll try this. I reckon you could do it. Like if you try and talk to an audience while a Tasmanian devil tries to eat all 5 of your remaining toes. Oh. That was my last job. You know that?
No.
In fact, my old boss went to work at the Devils at Cradle, so she's in charge of all the beautiful happiness over there.
Oh, right.
Yeah. She taught me to, feed devils while talking to people. It's quite an epic thing.
What's her name?
Sarah.
Oh, right. That wasn't the name of the person who took us. The person who took us was amazing as well.
They look good, though, don't they?
Oh, they're so cute,
Beautiful facility. Oh, yeah. They're adorable.
Yeah. Oh, and their facility is really, really cool as well. And, your first glance is like, wow, why are these beautiful Tasmanian devils being kept in captivity? And then you find out why, with the face cancer and also the biggest killer of Tasmanian devils is roadkill, because they get out to eat the roadkill and get hit by cars.
Yeah.
So, it was, again, I've learned so much while I was away,
Yeah.
just endless stream of education.
Yeah. How's your injury? Have you healed up yet?
Yeah. So I was putting on my shoe today, and the bruising's still a bit tender.
Oh dear.
But I
Tasmania. Come away with bruises.
But you know what though, it's a good story, and I've realised that perhaps my thrill-seeking days are getting less and less, or more and more limited.
Well, wait till you go to another Elton John concert, Ray. You'll be straight out again. You'll have 9 bruises.
I told James my story about Elton John, and I'm not sure if I've ever told you, Mark, but I can't remember what we were talking about.
Mainly you.
Mainly, that's right. It's my only chance, actually. I don't normally get to talk about myself so much. Although Mark...
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Mark had a question for you, didn't you, Mark?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah.
You want to ask it now?
Yeah. Give it a go. Give it a go.
All right. So, James, without sounding too official, what's the most amazing thing, or maybe the word I'm looking for is, what's the most rewarding aspect of the job that you do at the moment?
At the moment, I get to look at the trees.
Trees.
I get to be outside all the time, and because I'm really connected up with the bush, it's just like being at home every day. Yeah, mate.
Yeah. And you mentioned you're off to Malaysia. What part of Malaysia are you going to?
We're going to KL, Kuala Lumpur, which I'm looking forward to as a wildlife fan. I love koalas. Done about the lumps. We're going to Penang afterwards, which is another city. And it's really cheap to stay in like rooftop bars and hotels there, so we're going to do that. And then, being me, I'm going to go to Borneo and hammock in the jungle and see some of my orangutan friends. You don't know me, Mark, but I'm oranga.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that. Is there any sort of creature in the wild that you're really looking forward to seeing? And you actually answered what I was thinking about. So well done, you. And I hope that you have the most wonderful time over there. That must be just amazing, because obviously we know that the species, is I'm not sure the exact extinction code at the moment, but it's in danger. We could definitely say that. So look, that must be the most incredible experience. So we wish you the most safest of travels, and you'll just have the most amazing time.
But hammocking in the jungle, how exciting! You're gonna take your air guard with you, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, they're not the worst thing. I did it once before in Thailand. I nearly got killed.
Oh.
I did it for 2 nights. You want to hear this?
Yeah, of course.
2 nights, I slung my hammock up. I just bought this $5 hammock from a nearby market, and it's sort of the consistency of lingerie. So I had
Depends whose lingerie you're talking about there.
Like a really young, fit lady, and it was tiny. I had to sort of strap myself in with shoelaces. I literally tied myself in. And the first night, it was terrifying because it rained a bit, and I could hear sounds through the whole night, like bumping and crashing. And I got through it all right. And the next day was beautiful. There were gibbons in the morning and flying lizards. I thought, well, I probably ought to raise my hammock up a bit, because I felt a few bangs and crashes. Might be deer or something. And I raised my hammock by 2 meters. And the next night, I was hearing this immense rumbling. It sounded like Indiana Jones was rolling his big ball down the hill. And I clicked it. I was like, oh, man, that's an elephant. And an elephant on their own is a bull male. And when he got close, and he did get close, I could smell him. Oh. And he must have been in mask. You could smell this guy who was full of testosterone, full of elephant smells. And he actually hung around my hammock tree. He bumped and rubbed up against my tree for about 4 hours, crashing and destroying everything. And I was absolutely terrified. I thought I was going to die. But I lived through it.
So what happened?
Well, in the morning, he took off, and you could see the path he made. It was like a bulldozer charging right for where my friend cleverly had bought an actual tent and stayed in the actual campsite. And the place around my hammock in the morning was just completely cluttered. It was just destroyed. It was like the mafia made a point there. There was everything just destroyed.
Wow. So you didn't have a third night in the hammock?
No, we had to leave. I couldn't wait.
Oh, wow. You must have been, going to the toilet.
Yeah, well, I could have dropped my iPhone on him. That's right.
That's right. Oh, wow. That is. I'm so glad that you're around to tell the story.
Yeah.
But
me too.
You be careful when you're out there again.
Oh my God. I will. Yeah. I'm taking my girlfriend this time. So what could possibly go wrong?
A lot of things, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Could be my last interview ever.
Yeah. So when do you head off?
In 2 weeks. 1st of August.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so
I've
exciting.
got stabbed in the arm. I've got my injections. I've got the medicine.
All right.
There's no anti-elephant pills you can take, though.
Didn't try to get an exemption for your vaccination or anything?
An exemption? How?
It was kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke. I always find it really astounding that, having travelled a lot myself, you just line up at the doctor saying, put any vaccination into me just so I can get on a plane.
Yeah.
But it comes to a bit of, healthy dose of COVID, and it's like, oh, no, we can't do that.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. You got to keep up to the news to learn all that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Not that we like to get political on this show at all, James.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that.
No. So what's on for the rest of your day?
Well, I've got to drive back up to Freycinet today.
Oh.
Do a bit more work.
Yeah.
Meet more people like you.
Yeah.
It's going to be exhausting.
What, all that chatter?
Yeah. Mike, you ought to come along. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, well, Mark's mum lives in Ulverston.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a nice part of town.
It is.
Yeah.
Right on the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like after we saw you, we headed down to. I went to Port Arthur.
Yeah.
And then that was amazing. Rosa and I went to Port Arthur and then stayed down there for a night on our own, and then we went up to Hobart, and then from Hobart went to Strahan. That was a pretty hair-raising drive.
Oh, yeah. That one nearly killed me a few times.
Yeah, it's not. Oh, yeah. Anyway, I did it though, and then
You did well.
we went from Strahan. We went to Cradle Mountain,
Oh, yeah.
and then from Cradle Mountain, to back to the boat to Devonport.
Great.
So it was really good. It was fantastic. We just saw so much stuff. Went to the caves at Mole Creek, which were cool. Have you been there?
I have, yeah. Also nearly died in there as well.
Oh, tell us what happened there.
Well, okay, all my friends, same friends, going to Malaysia. We booked they call it spelunking. Did you know you could do a spelunking holiday?
Never heard of it.
You'd know about it, Mark. You're an educated man.
He's shaking his head.
Spelunking is another word for caving.
Oh.
So we sort of turned up a day early and we were free camping because we're cool. And we sort of parked right next to this cave. We turned up in the dark. And then me, while the others were doing the work and making dinner, I went for a little explore in the cave and sort of nearly fell down a few holes. And, wild. I mean, the next day, the camping lady, the guide turned up, spelunking guide. And she was a spelunking guide, and let me say that. She turned up and said, "Who's this car? I'm sick of people coming here. Don't they read the signs? They park right in front of there and they even have fires. They're ruining the place. I don't know who that is, but I'm going to try and see if I can call my office and see who can move the car." And I sort of slowly put my hand up and said, "Well, I've got the keys here. I'll move it. I'll just stay out of the way." And so I moved that, and then we did this short little tour, and then she started by saying, the hole that I nearly fell down, she pointed out immediately and made a big warning speech. "Don't go anywhere near anything that you don't understand. A toddler nearly died in here last year, and if you fall down there's a running river and you'll drown to death without help."
Oh, wow.
And again, I kept my mouth shut, which is learning to be a wise thing for me.
Yes.
And we ended up squeezing through these tiny holes the size of a bucket. We all went through it. It was quite amazing. No moles, though.
No moles. I didn't see any moles. Well,
no, me neither. I don't know what the name is for.
Opens up to a whole other line of questioning, doesn't it, though? But we're getting close to the end of the show now. So, James, it's been a pleasure having you on. As entertaining on air as you are in a boat or a kayak in our case.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I got a rap career, right?
Yeah. Yep. I reckon.
Okay.
Well, we kind of talked about that when we were kayaking together. That you're capable of doing anything, and you do. You just go out into the world and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And
you've already done it. You show me how.
That's right.
I pulled off so many belts since. I'm in big trouble. All right.
But we do have a little song request for you.
Oh yeah.
So I've just got to cue it up. I'm notorious for not queuing my songs correctly.
Oh, okay.
It's a Ben Howard song.
Yeah.
And tell us what that means to you.
Well, when I was really sad, sick and depressed at 19, he was all I would listen to.
Oh.
And anyone who came past my room, they knew if he was on, they'd know, all right, he's fine. And this is my favourite song by him. I don't understand it, but it's utterly brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's not quite the same vibe as Pharrell Williams, but give it a hit.
Oh, well. Well, you have a wonderful day, and if I don't speak to you before, do have a wonderful and safe trip to Malaysia.
Yeah.
You take care of all those Taswegians as well.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for inviting me here.
It's a pleasure. See you, James.
See you, James.
See you, Ray.
Bye.
See you, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.
There you go. I forget where we were, and I literally have forgotten where we were because the time is 55 minutes past 11, or for other people, that's 5 minutes to 12. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and you're here with Rae Bonney and marvellous Mark Brown. So how's your first time on live radio been for you, Mark?
Fantastic, Ray. I'd recommend it to anybody, especially if you're an introvert but wanting to become an extrovert.
Yeah.
Because you get to do it without anyone looking.
Yeah,
so to
that's
speak.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. I know some people can become really daunted because they don't know who's listening, and it could be a million people. But I was taught always be talking just to one person. I just want to remind everyone as well, if any of our discussions today have brought up uncomfortable feelings for listeners, please remember help is there. Here's a few options for further support. Lifeline is 131114. Suicide callback service 1300 659 467, and of course emergency services is 000. Thank you so much for coming on the show and helping me out today, Mark. It's been great having you on the other side of the panel.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
What was it
been
like?
Great. What was it like? Fantastic.
Yeah, great. Well, my next show falls on Sunday the 21st of August. What day is that?
I don't know. I think it's somebody's birthday that
I think
day.
it could be somebody's
Yeah.
birthday. And you'll be 48?
47.
47. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Because when you said you were 47 before, that's leading up to the 21st of August. So it is a very special day because it is Mark's birthday. And the evening before, I have the privilege of taking you out for dinner.
You do. Are we allowed to tell people where we're going, or
Well, yeah,
is it a surprise?
you can tell.
Well, the lovely Rae Bonney is taking me to Attica, which I believe is one, if not the best restaurant in Australia.
Well, it is. It's included in the world's 50 best restaurants in the world, and its current position is the top restaurant in Australia.
And Ray, we might know someone who happens to work there. Would you like to just sort of put a plug in there as well, just while we're talking about Attica?
Middle child, number one son, George. Yes, George works at Attica. But also the other surprise is that on your birthday, my special guests who are coming into the studio are none other than Ben Sherry and his partner Kylie from Ben owns Attica, and he's a very accomplished chef. And Kylie Stadden, his partner, she runs the business pretty much, and remarkable people. So I'm pretty excited about dining at their digs on the Saturday night and then having them on the show the following day, so we can do a bit of a wrap up of what we thought. Might even have to dial you in.
No pressure, folks.
No pressure
Yeah.
at all. So that's really exciting. I can see that the lovely Paula Hogg has entered Studio One, and she's waving to me. I'm waving back to her because we're very fancy here. We have TV monitors in the studio, and but yeah, to see Paula's gearing up for a lazy Sunday afternoon, where she plays a plethora or a myriad of beautiful tunes, peppered with her dulcet tones as she front announces, does all the announcing she can in the world. So look forward to that. Do stay tuned. So I'm going to say adios because it's 59 minutes past 12 and I've got one more song to play, and that is your request, Mark.
It is.
It is. You just went quiet.
I was trying to think of the name of the song.
It's got something to do with cups,
Buttercups.
buttercups.
Don't Break My Heart.
Why did you choose this song?
Just a really happy song.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It
it's by the Foundations.
It is by the Foundations. So once again, thank you for today. Everybody, wherever you are in the world, do take care and remember it really is okay to not be okay. We'll speak to you later. Bye.